Well, hello everyone. Welcome to today's Working Wednesday Walkabout. Today, it's all about tough love in the garden. And it's very timely because just as about the time we're getting ready to demonstrate some tough love, Mother Nature's getting tough with us. So tomorrow, I think it's supposed to get up to 94, 95. Then temperatures will go down again, I believe. But it's time to start thinking, well, let's just say reality is slapping us in the face. And it's time for us to get just as tough as the weather on the way. What do you say? Let's do it. Okay, I'm going to show at least 5 examples of tough love, starting with this It's a Breeze Ivory Rose, which has just really escaped the bonds of earth, and it is just far exceeded what it said on the growing tag, which was that it was going to be about 3 to 4 feet wide, 3 to 4 feet tall. But as we have found in the South, sometimes performance far exceeds whatever is on the grow tag. So let's just say that plant tags are just kind of recommendations. I think we've talked about that before, but keep that in mind that plant tags give you some guidelines, but that in some they're just recommendations, because this rose has just gotten way too big. And I think I mentioned to you earlier that I wanted to reduce it by at least 1/3, perhaps all the way down to 1/2. And I know you want to know how to do that because you've asked me. And then a couple of garden visitors came by the cottage today and she said, I've got a rose just like this. I want to know what you're going to do with it. So as long as she was here, I just started whacking at it and gave her a little demonstration. Now, one thing I have done is I just use some long shears, some long bladed shears. These are really hefty. They're not like that those Barnell pruners, which are a little bit more delicate for fine pruning. These are really hefty. Now, you also may recall that at the beginning of the year, I had a truck come by and it sharpened things for me. So these are really sharp. And I am also disinfecting them. I keep a little spray bottle of alcohol, just regular old isopropyl alcohol in there, and I give it a spritz. I do this periodically throughout the trimming process.
As long as I've known you.
Yep. And as long as, first of all, there's no evidence of any kind of disease on here, and so I'm not too worried about it, but I want to do whatever I can to prevent any problems in the future, including getting lots of abrasions on my forearms. So I'm wearing some Cool Jobs rose gloves. Probably should have some long sleeves on, but that's a preventive measure for my arms against any kind of injury. And then I had some sandals on earlier and I told Stuart, oh no, now I need to get some regular garden boots on, because as this stuff falls off, I don't want to step on it. So those are just some kind of practical measures we can take. Now notice I'm not using electric shears, because to me, they just tear too much at the foliage and they just give it unsightly bruising, I think. Better to use some long bladed sharp pruners. And this is all I'm doing. I'm not coming in here, I'm not paying any attention to leaf nodes like you would if you were just gently deadheading it. Here, I am just doing like I would do for a regular shrub. I'm just coming in here and I'm shearing it. Now, I don't have any kind of tarp or anything underneath this because it is just a little too densely planted. And right now, you may have seen, I just cut off some new buds, because they would have been outlying buds anyway, and I really don't necessarily want them here. Now, the reason I'm doing this is, as I said, it's supposed to get very hot. These are already brown, and I want to do it before the temperatures get up in the 90s. But also, I want to do this because I want all of these to be putting out new growth, new buds, and looking pretty again by the time that the next season of the cottage garden begins, and that would be hydrangea season. So Stuart, let's just speed things up here, and I will keep pruning on this rose, and then we'll go on to Tough Love number 2. as you can see, I'm kind of making short work of this. You can imagine how much longer it would take me if I was very fastidious about leaf nodes and everything. But a couple of things. Number one, I will make sure that I clean up all of this, all of these cuttings around the plant, just in the event any of them are diseased, but also because it's kind of unsightly having all of these around as they turn brown. The other thing is, the lawn crew is coming tomorrow, and I always like to do this kind of thing beforehand, because then when they come and they blow and things like that, they can clean up some of my mess. So this is a pretty good example right here of just how it's just gotten way overgrown. The other thing that I kind of am mindful of when I do this is that I don't want the top to be a lot wider than the bottom, because that would mean that the top would shade out the bottom. So ultimately, as I am fine tuning it, I'll make sure that the top really, there's not any great overhang. Tough love. A bug just flew in your nose? Okay, so Stuart, be tough. Just be tough.
Just snort it down.
Yeah, okay. So I can finish this up a little bit later. As you see, it really isn't taking me too long, but it will be drastically reduced. If I take it down by another quarter, by about another foot, it'll be about the same size as the one on the other side, which won't get such a drastic pruning. After I clean up all of the debris, all of the cuttings, everything, I make sure that it meets my specifications for size and presentability. Then I will come in, I will give it a feed of rose tone, and I will water that rose tone in really, really well. So right here, let's put up a link to that rose tone, Espoma rose tone, and I don't see any evidence of anything right now. No problems, no rose rosette, no pests of any kind, so I'm pretty pleased with myself. Let's go on to number 2, Tough Love, and I will finish this a little bit later. So you can see I've done about half of it. The other half is still in waiting, but believe me, it will look a lot better all in healthy green foliage than it would with a lot of dead white blooms. So that's why I wanted to get them trimmed. Okay, now Tough Love number 2. My lawn this year, I was so pleased with it in the spring. It was really beautiful. You may recall that I had Bermuda grass, and we overseeded with an annual or perennial rye, a perennial rye, and it was beautiful and very spring green for when all of the tulips were in bloom, and it performed great. But now it's starting to show signs of yellowing as the temperatures heat up. So as the temperatures get in upper 80s, the high 90s, and definitely in the hundreds, I want all of that perennial rye to die back or just fade away. What I want to come up and through it is all of the Bermuda grass, which is, it's a heat lover. So what we're going to do is tomorrow, we are going to scalp this. It's going to be some real tough love. We're going to scalp this, and by that I mean cut it very, very short, which means it will look kind of brown and ugly for a while. Then we're going to feed it pretty heavily, probably with Milorganite, but we're going to feed it pretty heavily with a nitrogen fertilizer, and then pray for rain. If we don't get rain, then I'll water it. And then in short order, these berms will look green and beautiful again. I really don't have too many weeds. If I do, I can address them just by hand, but I want it to look as good in the summer as it did in the spring, something I never was able to have at the other house until I got faux grass. Here, I want the real stuff. Okay, boy, this is a beautiful view, even at the high sun time of day. It's about, what, 2:30, Stuart? So yeah. It's pretty hot out here. Okay, so we will do this berm as well. We will cut it back really hard. We will shear it, scalp it if you will, and then we'll feed it. So I only do that to these 2 berms. I only do those nearest to the cottage. These other areas near the trees down the sidewalk on the east side. I don't fertilize that. I'm not going to overseed it. I'm not going to do anything with that. We did not overseed it in the spring, and I'm not going to certainly overseed it in the summer. So it will just keep getting cut. It will be tidy. It will be manicured. It will look very, very nice and kept, but it won't be green like the other, and that's just fine with me because the green kind of frames the cottage garden. I don't need for the rest of this to be using up that many resources. Okay, let's give you a little bit of pretty in between all of the garden violence because I do think that's a pretty shot. The whites and the blues and the purples are really showing themselves off to their very best. I do want to talk a little bit about my white dilemma, what was going to be the baby bear, and kind of my the completion of that thought about that container planting ensemble. And you can see right here, these guys are just waiting. And I went to Breck's today, and I wasn't able to find as much of annuals as I wanted to do, but one of you recommended, and then I also saw it by accident, and that was, I had one thing of gar left, 1 gallon of gar left from when I was on TV the other day talking about thunder plantings. And I had said it, not intentionally, but I just had kind of said it, by all of that other white. And then one of you recommended it as a white accompaniment. And look at how pretty that looks together. I really think that looks gorgeous. The other thing is I can use this as a container planting now because my beds are way too dense to try to install this and plant this now. But in the fall, I can then easily plant it from the container that it will be in for the duration of the summer into the ground. Also in a container rather than in the beds, I'll keep it really well deadheaded, and hopefully that will keep the blooms on coming on. And as Stuart and I were walking around, I'm taking a look at that Minoan lace and how gorgeous it looks as very much the quintessential cottage flower and a quintessential cottage garden scene there on the upper terrace on the east side. But I'm also thinking, okay, Linda, next year, maybe you want to sow some seeds of Minoan lace into just an empty pot so that if you decide to replicate this white ensemble again next year, then you will have that as another component. Very, very Klaus Dalby. Now, if Stuart and I start coughing, sorry, I needed to do that, or we stop or we flub up our words, it's because it's a little breezy out here. There's bugs, there's just stuff floating around in the air, and we keep sneezing and coughing and ingesting some of it. Stuart had one go up his nose. Yep. But the show must go on. The show must go on. So with that, the show will go on around the corner. Now this isn't tough love, this is just a quick demonstration on deadheading your roses. I'm not going to come in and be quite so brutal to these, but if you see here, I'm just coming in right above a petal or a leaf node right here with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaves on this leaflet. And then I'm going to come back in and I'm just going to deadhead the roses, obviously the ones that are dead, a little bit more delicately than the violence of tough love. And I can come, I kind of do this a little bit at a time. And if only a couple of the ones in the rosette, see right here, same thing right there. A couple of the flowers in the rosette are blemished or are tired and dead, then I'll cut those out like this one here. But the other ones, I will just leave remaining until they're gone. Some of these canes, I could cut it right here, but I'm going to cut it back a little bit farther because these are going to continue to grow pretty rapaciously throughout the summer. And that might be more growth than I want, so I can control its size too while I'm here. Okay, the roses aren't the only thing getting a little bit of tough love today. This hanging basket is too. And this is something that typically I don't do till closer to the middle of the summer, after the heat has set in for a while and things are getting really, really leggy. But I bought this hanging basket very early in the spring, prior to the garden tour. And at that point in time, it was in full bloom, and then it got, drenched. It was part of the flash flood season. And then it just kind of got overgrown. So now I'm going to show it some tough love. And this is tough for me also, because despite the fact that it's gotten leggy and it has lots of, dead blossoms on here, dead blooms on here, there's still a lot of new blooms on here too. So the plant is still viable, it's still healthy, but it is very tired. And so we're going to rejuvenate it. And we're going to do that by what? Let's say it all together now. Showing it some tough love. So I've got my big pruners out, so I can use these, my head shears. And again, I'm not paying attention to leaf nodes or anything. But as you can see, that was a little bit unwieldy. So whenever I get ready to do these things, I make sure that I have a number of different kinds of pruners, shears, scissors in my arsenal of garden tools. So I will use whatever seems to make the most sense. And here, in this case, it's just some regular Fisker pruners. And again, these were sharpened at the beginning of the season. And I'm just cutting all of this back because the top layer of this is still kind of green, but look underneath. See, it's all crispy and brown underneath there. So I am just cutting this all back very, very hard. And it's kind of died back because it's tired, because it probably needs to be repotted and it can't hold on to the moisture. I can feel over here that this is wet, but on this side isn't wet. And see how it's separated from the pot? That's an indication that it's really not holding on to water. So I will probably repot this. I will loosen up the root ball because no doubt it is very congested. I will give it a good feed with some kind of super bloom. And it's nice to have your guys on a stand when you do this, so you don't really have to bend over as much as I was bending over. That's another thing this stool has been great for. And again, I am doing this the day before everything gets groomed and cleaned up in my yard. So that way, while I will do a little bit of the cleanup myself, I don't have to be overly fastidious about it. I don't have to get out my big gun blowers or even my little works blower. So this isn't rocket science. But it is tough love. It is being a little bit brutal, but that's okay. Sometimes, just like you have to exercise to keep your weight off and to stay looking good, stay healthy, sometimes we need to do the same to our plants. Now, could I have just tossed this and not gone to any of this trouble? Yes, I could have. But I really loved this color of petunia, and I anticipate that by showing it some love, it will come out and it will be beautiful once again. So it still has value if I just treat it right. So when I'm done here, this will go kind of to my forgotten garden over there by the fence, the brick wall, where it will be there, where I remember to feed it, where I remember to repot it, and most importantly, where I will continue to show it love, albeit not tough love. Okay, we interrupt our regularly scheduled tough love video today to show you, well, let's just say a different kind of tough love. So Hubs and I have been working back here today because he said, would you please help me decide where to put
the hammock.
The hammock? What's that? Yeah, I was having a brain freeze for a minute. The hammock. That wasn't a bug. That was just a brain freeze. The hammock.
Well, he had the viewer stop by last week because he was...
Yeah, because it's hammock season.
Yeah.
And the reason that it took us a while was because to make room for the hammock over here, we needed to move the fire pit, which was here. And we had been using the fire pit up until then, which I reminded him. So even though he was giving me some tough love, I said, well, in my defense, we have been using the fire pit. So the fire pit, and excuse me, I have been cleaning things off, so of course my hose is out. You can see this. The fire pit is now over here, and I have been helping Hubs hose down and clean up all of his camping equipment and all of that kind of stuff. So this is a little bit of a wreck, but this is where the fire pit will live during the summer because we won't really be over here lighting a fire. And this is where the air conditioner is. So other than when it's turned off and Stuart and I are shooting something over here, there's not any reason for it not to be over here. So even though this is in bright sun right now, for a good chunk, the better chunk of the day and in the evening, as you guys know, if you've watched this channel for any length of time, a lot of this is very shady during the day. So he also instructed me, well, you know, I will need a little table to go next to it for my coffee and my gin and tonic in the evening. And I said, oh yes. And now I'm thinking he'll probably chastise me again because he's a lefty. So I need to either move it up here or I need to move it on that side. So he will have a table to use. But it's fun for me because look at this, it just injects this wonderful color red back here again.
Yep.
Infuses. What are we gonna do when I get tired of this color of red back here?
That'd be crazy to see what's next.
Yeah, I'll have to think about it, but I love it so much. And you know, this is just a testament to trying things because historically I have not been a red lover. Okay, we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, I'm gonna show you another example of tough love. Okay, here is some more grooming, good garden hygiene and tough love. And by the way, a good time to do this is not only before your yard crew comes through, whether that's you or your husband or your wife or a yard crew comes through. This is a good time to do this, but it's also a good time to do this right before, if you're going to be out of town or something. I'm not necessarily going to be, but I typically like to do these things before I go on vacation or a long weekend away, because that way the plants recover while you're gone. They go through their uglies while you're not even there. And you have fed them, you have nurtured them, and then when they come back, they're ready to start performing and you know, behaving again. So here I've got some clover that I planted, gosh, way back in the spring, and it too has just gone by leaps and bounds. And Sweet Clara next door, she brought me a whole bunch of little clover from the park. Yesterday we were going to make a clover chain, and then we ran out of time. But this is just, it's just not looking tidy. It's looking a little too wild and rangy, and I like things to look a little bit more neater than that. So I'm going to come in here just with my pruners, and notice I'm cutting it back pretty hard. And I promise you that it will recover. It will recover not only because it kind of needs this to rejuvenate itself, because remember, pruning produces new growth. So this will encourage new growth, but also it will give the other plants in here that I'm trying to get established a way to kind of settle in, and they will all appreciate a good feed, because I added some of this really intense lantana in golden red here, and this is a red verbena, and then this will come out and it will look a bit more tidy and clumpish when it first comes out, in contrast to these things, which will begin to really grow and cascade over the side. So again, tough love here. I'm not taking it out. This is a perennial, and I'll leave it in the pot. I'm also being careful not to cut any of the blooms on the coral bell. But if some of your containers they just don't look as nice and as fresh as they did when you first purchased them or you first planted them, then show them some tough love. Cut them back, way back. Well, creating a topiary, I wouldn't consider tough love. It's more gentle execution. But I promised to show you guys how I was going to start transforming this holly into a 2 or 3 tiered holly. And I think, did we put that up with the template on the last one? Okay.
The third optional.
Yeah, so this is very, very obvious, you guys. I have not pruned on this at all. It's one of the reasons that I like Oakland hollies from the Southern Living Plant Collection, because they tend to do this. They grow like this, and then they have this surge of growth kind of up through the middle or the side. And that is very, very conducive to topiary. So this one, like I said, I'm not going to cut on it a lot, but I am going to gently encourage its inner topiary. And so I've just got...
I love that.
Well, it's just like, Michelangelo said, there's just a piece of stone and inside of it is some masterpiece. Well, it's the same with this. It's the same with this. So all I'm doing is just kind of getting it back to kind of a semi-natural topiary form of 2 balls. And then a lot of times, there's another one of those things flying in the air, Stuart. A lot of this trimming I don't do until the winter, because I kind of like to use a lot of this holly for decorating for the holidays. But right now, because I want it to start assuming this shape, I'm going to show it a little tough love. And I probably should have some garden gloves while I'm doing this, because these are a little bit prickly. Not terrible, but a little bit prickly. And you'll see all this in here, I'm kind of leaving alone, because what I want is I don't want a ball, a stem, and another ball. What I want is this ball to sit on top of this ball. So I want it to rest right on top of it. So by clipping off some of this, hopefully it will also encourage more of this bloom coming out, or this growth coming out. And then we're at a decision point. So if I want a 3rd ball right here, here's my question of the day. Do I want to encourage this towards the center, which means I would have to do a little staking and a little finessing to make a 3rd ball, or are we content with just 2 balls? So in the comments below, let me know your thoughts. I haven't decided yet, so I'm not going to clip off that top ball, that top outlying projectile of a branch until I decide. Stuart, what say you?
I mean, I think 3 would look really good.
With the 3rd ball kind of right there.
Is it pretty high up though?
Yeah, it's pretty high up, but this one could have a little bit of space in between. But remember, once I start pruning this at the top to shape it as a ball, it's going to force new growth down here too.
So it will fill in a little.
So it will fill in. It just will take a little bit more time. As I keep pruning on this, I will have almost instantaneously a 2-ball topiary. So
yeah, it really did do that. It's like 2 balls instantly.
Yeah. So that is I'm showing it a little tough love so it will become more formal. You may recall that those others over there by the door to nowhere, those I decided not to topiary. They're just going to be in regular conical Christmas tree form. And I'm not going to be terrifically fastidious about this right now, but I think you'll be able to see that clearly the gardener's intent here is to create a topiary. So there you go. Tough love on a mission with this Oakland holly. Okay, I've been meaning to tell you about this because you guys, so many of you have asked about it and I just keep ignoring you and I don't intend to. So the awnings came back. They were taken down because I wanted the interior bracing to be powder coated. And by the way, the company that did this, I can highly recommend, is Awnique, A-W-N-I-Q-U-E. I highly recommend them. What a cool name, Awnique. I will say this, do prepare to be patient because this is the time of year that they get really busy. Actually, they were even busy in the wintertime. So be prepared to be patient and wait for a while to get what you want. But we took those down because I wanted those to be powder coated black, not metal, and then we put them back up. They're just slate gray and they do have a slight scallop on the end. It looks, I don't know, I think it looks nice and it looks tailored and it gives me a bit of shade over here and also obviously in the back a bit of shade. If you were wondering, I'm going to be doing a prune on this Encore azalea pretty soon, but we'll save that for another day. But there you go. There's 5 ways I show some tough love to my roses, to my lawn, to my hanging baskets, to my potted plants, and how Hubs shows a little tough love to me.